The darkness of deep space was endless, silent, and cold. Out here, there were no cities, no lights, no noise, only the black void stretching in every direction. But on this night, the silence was broken. A voice cut through the static of the listening station on the far edge of human territory. "This is the Keller Alliance. We surrender. Please, please, help us. We beg you, don't let them destroy us." It was broken, trembling, desperate. The words were in alien common, but the fear inside them was something every species understood. Lieutenant Adrian Hall, the night operator, froze as he replayed the transmission. The voice sounded like it was coming from a dying throat. Behind the words, there were strange noises, explosions, screaming, and a deep, echoing roar like thunder. Then, silence. Hale checked the coordinates. His eyes widened. This wasn't from a friendly world. The signal came from Sector V-19, an uncharted border zone where human ships rarely traveled. It was almost at the edge of the unknowns, a dark part of the galaxy filled with rumors and ghost stories. He tapped the screen, sending the recording to Central Command. Within minutes, the top brass knew. A desperate alien race had called out for humanity, not their own allies, to save them. Orders to the Dreadnought, the massive human warship HSS Iron Will, received the mission an hour later. Built in the great shipyards of Earth's orbit, the Dreadnought was a floating fortress of steel and power, 6 kilometers long, bristling with heavy guns, missile batteries, and shields that could take the blast of a small star. Captain Rhea Carter stood on the bridge, her short black hair barely moving in the hum of recycled air. She read the message twice, her jaw tight. "They begged us for help," she said quietly. "Yes, ma'am," her first officer, Commander Vance, replied. "They didn't send this to their own kind. They sent it to humans." Rhea stared at the holographic star map. Sector V-19 glowed in red. "That means 2 things," she said. 1, they think we can save them. 2, whatever's out there is bad enough to scare them more than us. The crew prepared for jump. Engineers ran checks on the main reactors, Marines secured their weapons, and sensor officers calibrated long-range scans. Everyone felt the same cold weight in their stomachs. The last piece of the alien recording played again over the ship's speakers. "We beg you, don't let them destroy us." It wasn't just a request for help. It was a cry from the edge of extinction. Jump into the unknown. The Dreadnought's jump drive engaged with a deep, vibrating hum. The stars around the Iron Will stretched into thin white lines before snapping back into view. The jump spat them out into a sea of darkness. Here, the stars were faint, as if afraid to shine. Almost immediately, the sensor officer spoke. "Captain, I'm picking up debris fields. Multiple, hundreds of ships. On the main display, wreckage floated in space like bones in an endless graveyard. Hulls were torn apart, their insides spilling into the void. Lieutenant Hale, now on board as communications specialist, patched through a faint secondary signal. It wasn't a distress call this time, it was coordinates. Whispered in a weak alien voice. The voice said, "Come to the cradle." "Hurry," Commander Vance frowned. "Cradle?" Carter didn't answer. She knew what the word meant in old spacefaring slang, the homeworld. Whoever sent this wanted them to go to the planet below. The silent world. The Dreadnought descended toward the planet's atmosphere. It was a beautiful world. Or it had been once. Blue seas, green forests, and silver-white cities that shone in the sunlight. But now, most of the surface was scarred black. Smoke rose from craters big enough to swallow mountains. "Scanning for life," the sensor officer reported. "No large-scale biosigns. Cities are empty. Radiation levels high in some areas." Carter's eyes stayed on the burning horizon. "What about survivors?" "1 or 2 faint signals," the officer said slowly. "But they vanished before." "We can lock on," The Iron Will cruised over the capital city. Its towers were cracked and broken. Streets were filled with twisted metal and strange scorch marks. These weren't human weapon burns. They were something sharper, hotter, almost surgical in their destruction. Data from the dead drones were deployed to recover whatever information they could. One came back carrying a half-melted alien data core from a building that looked like a government center. The tech team worked fast. Images flickered to life on the bridge's holo display. Video from before the attack. It showed alien citizens going about their lives, market streets, aircars flying between towers, children playing by a fountain. Then, without warning, the sky lit up. Black ships with jagged, curved hulls fell from orbit like predators diving for the kill. Energy beams cut through buildings. Explosions bloomed across the city. And then the attackers were visible. The Dreadnought. Dominion, a name that made even experienced officers on the Iron Will tense. The Dreadnought were feared across the galaxy, a warlike empire that crushed any resistance without mercy. In the recording, alien soldiers fired back, but their weapons barely scratched the Dreadnought armor. Civilians screamed, running for cover as the sky turned into fire. The last frame showed a Dreadnought battleship above the capital, charging a massive weapon. Then the feed cut to black. Why humans? Commander Vance broke the silence. Dreadnought don't take prisoners. They burn everything. Why call us? Lieutenant Holly answered, his voice low. Because the Dreadnought fear us. It was true. Humanity had fought the Dreadnought once, years ago, and though the war had ended in a shaky truce, the humans had earned a reputation for fighting like no other species. Fierce, unpredictable, and relentless. The Dreadnought had learned to respect human warships, and to avoid them when possible. Now it seemed someone had called on that reputation. The shadow in the void as the Dreadnought continued scanning the planet. An alert screamed across the bridge. Multiple WARP signatures detected. The sensor officer shouted. Dreadnought ships inbound. A fleet of black spiked warships dropped out of warp, their hulls glistening like knives in the faint light. The largest ship in front opened a channel. A tall, armored Dreadnought commander appeared on the screen, his eyes like burning coals. His voice was deep and cold. Humans, leave this place. This world is ours. If you remain, you will share their fate. Captain Carter stepped forward, her voice calm. This world called for our help. They are already dead, the Dreadnought said. Do not make their grave your own. The transmission ended. The bridge crew waited for orders. Carter stood silent for a moment, feeling the weight of the choice. She knew turning back would be safer. But she also knew what the Iron Will was built for, not retreat, but defiance. Bring us to combat alert, she ordered. Arm all. Batteries, shields to full. Commander Vance nodded sharply. Yes, Captain. The Dreadnought's lights shifted to deep red. The low rumble of weapon systems charging filled the air. Marines secured their armor and weapons. On the main display, the Dreadnought fleet moved closer, forming a wall between the humans and the planet below. A whisper from the dark, just before the first shots were fired. A faint signal broke through the static. It wasn't DRVK. It was the same alien voice from the first message, weak and trembling. You came, thank you. But hurry, the cradle will fall. The signal cut off. Carter's hands tightened on the command rail. Somewhere down there, someone was still alive, and they were counting on humans to do what no one else could. The Iron Will's engines roared, pushing the Dreadnought forward. Ahead, the Dreadnought fleet spread their claws. The cry for mercy had been heard. And humanity was about to answer. The Iron Will floated above the dead planet like a silent guardian. Below, the surface was blackened and broken. Above, the Dreadnought fleet hovered like vultures, their jagged ships cutting the starlight into shards. The tension on the bridge was so heavy, it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. Captain Rhea Carter stood at the center, her eyes locked on the tactical display. Every movement of the enemy ships was tracked, every small drift of their formation noted. Status? She asked quietly. Shields full. Weapons charged, Commander Vance replied. No one's fired yet, but they're closing the gap. The Dravak commander's last words still echoed in the crew's minds. Leave or join them in Ash. The first move. The standoff ended when the largest Dravak cruiser sent a pulse of scanning energy over the Dreadnought. They're scanning our hull, said the sensor officer. Measuring our weapons. They already know, Carter said. They're just deciding if it's worth the fight. Then, without warning, the Dravak fleet broke formation. 4 ships moved forward in a spearhead attack pattern. Their weapons flared to life, red energy gathering at the tips of their spines. Here they come. Vance shouted. Target lead ship, Carter ordered. Lock railguns and forward batteries. Opening fire, the first Dravak beam lit up the void, cutting across space toward the Iron Will. Shields flared, holding strong, but the impact rocked. The ship, minimal damage, the engineering officer reported. Return fire, Carter said. The Dreadnought's massive railguns boomed in silence, launching slugs at near-light speed. One slammed into the lead Dravak cruiser, punching through its shields and tearing open a glowing hole in its side. The alien ship drifted, leaking fire and metal into space. The other Dravak ships fired again, but the Iron Will's armor and shields absorbed most of the damage. On the bridge, Carter's voice stayed calm. Maintain position. Make them come to us. The battle seemed to be going in humanity's favor until Lieutenant Hale's console flashed. Captain, I'm intercepting Dravak comes. They're not trying to destroy us quickly. Carter turned. Then what are they doing? Hale's face was pale. They're stalling. The intercepted transmission was short but clear. Hold the human ship. Planet killer en route. The words sent a chill across the bridge. Planet killer. Long-range scans confirm it, the sensor officer said moments later. Warp signature. Massive. ETA. 20 minutes. Commander Vance swore under his breath. They're bringing in one of their super weapons. The Dravak planet killer was not just a ship. It was a weapon the size of a small moon, capable of burning away an entire world in a single blast. Humanity had seen one once before, during the war, and it had taken the sacrifice of 3 fleets to bring it down. Carter looked at the dark planet below, then at the enemy ships above. Somewhere down there, survivors might still be hiding. But in 20 minutes, the planet could be gone. The descent. Helm, Carter ordered. Take us into low orbit. Use the planet's magnetosphere to mask our signature from the incoming ship. The Dreadnought dipped lower, skimming over the shattered landscape. Below, the crew could see the ruins passing by, broken towers leaning over cracked streets. Seas turned black by fire, fields of twisted metal. Then, the sensor officer said, Captain, I'm getting faint energy readings in the eastern continent. Could be survivors. Lock coordinates, Carter said. Deploy recon drones. The hidden outpost. The drones soared over the wasteland until they found it. A small underground complex built into the side of a cliff. Its entrance was half buried in rubble, but faint power signatures came from inside. Looks like a military bunker, Vance said. The moment the drones approached, a transmission crackled through. It was the same alien voice from before. Weak, but clear enough now. You found us, thank you. But the cradle is dying. They will burn the sky. Carter replied, We're here to get you out. How many? 200, maybe less. Many wounded. We cannot move fast. The problem, 200, Vance said quietly. We can get them, but... Captain, the planet killer will be here before we can finish an evacuation. Carter knew he was right. Even with shuttles moving at full speed, the window was tight. Too tight, but leaving them wasn't an option. Prep all dropships, she ordered. And keep the main batteries hot. If the Dravak get close, we'll buy every second we can. The rescue begins. The first dropships blasted off from the Iron Will, cutting through the thin upper atmosphere. Marines in armored suits stood ready. Inside, weapons primed. When they landed outside the bunker, the scene was grim. The alien survivors were thin, pale, and trembling. Many had burns or missing limbs. Children clung to the arms of adults. The Marines moved fast, guiding them toward the dropships. The air was thick with smoke and the faint sound of distant explosions. The Dravak were still hitting parts of the planet. The enemy moves back in orbit. The Dravak fleet realized what the humans were doing. 2 of their ships broke away, diving toward the surface to intercept. They're going for the evac site. The sensor officer warned. Not happening, Carter said. Bring us between them and the planet. Fire at will. The Iron Will swung into position and unleashed its full broadside. Missiles streaked through space, railgun slugs punched through shields, and beams cut deep into alien hulls. One Dravak ship exploded in a flash of blue fire. The other limped away, trailing smoke. Clock ticking. The sensor officer's voice was tight. Planet killer arriving in 5 minutes. Dropships were still making runs, carrying load after load of survivors up to the Dreadnought's hangars. On the last run, the alien leader, a tall figure with silver skin and deep scars, stepped aboard and looked at the Marines. You are not like the others, he said in rough common. The Dravak fear you. That is why we called. The Marine squad leader simply said, then they're about to remember why. The shadow arrives in the black above the planet. A new shape emerged from warp. It was colossal, a black sphere bristling with weapons, dwarfing even the largest warships. The Dravak planet killer. The sight made even the most battle-hardened crew members feel a weight in their chests. All survivors aboard, Vance reported. Shields at maximum. What's the play, Captain? Carter stared at the massive ship. The play, she said, is to make sure they don't get the chance to fire. The Iron Will rose from the dead planet's atmosphere, carrying the last of the survivors deep inside its armored belly. The Dreadnought's hull glowed faintly from the heat of re-entry, but its guns were already turning toward the black giant. In orbit, the Dravak planet killer hung in space like a dark moon. Its surface bristled with heavy weapons, shield emitters, and jagged spines. Around it, smaller Dravak warships formed a tight defensive ring, ready to tear apart anything that came close. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Captain Rhea Carter stood. At the center, her voice steady. Report, she said. Survivors secured in medical bay and cargo decks, Commander Vance replied. Shields at full, all weapons charged. Dravak fleet moving to intercept. The air on the bridge felt heavy. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Dravak warning. The main screen flickered. The face of the Dravak commander appeared again, his eyes like molten metal. You defy us, human, he growled. You take what is ours. Now you will be broken. Carter's expression didn't change. You slaughtered a world. We took the living. That's the difference between us. The Dravak commander leaned closer to the screen. You will watch your ship burn from the inside. The transmission ended without ceremony. The battle begins, enemy ships closing fast, the sensor officer said. 6 frigates, 3 heavy cruisers, plus the planet killer staying back. Carter pointed to the tactical display. We take out the frigates first. Keep moving, never give them a clean shot. The Dreadnought surged forward. The first volley came from the Dravak, a wall of red energy beams lancing toward the Iron Will. Shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the hits, but the ship still shuddered under the force. Minimal damage. The engineering officer called out. Return fire. Carter ordered that. The forward railguns thundered, firing slugs faster than the eye could track. One Dravak frigate exploded instantly, its hull torn apart like paper. Missiles followed, streaking out to slam into another ship's engines. sending it spinning out of formation. Close quarters combat, 2 Dravak frigates broke through and raced directly toward the Dreadnought's flanks, their weapons glowing. Starboard point defense, fire! Vance commanded. Dozens of smaller gun turrets along the Iron Will's side lit up, spraying high-speed rounds that shredded the first frigate's incoming missiles. The second frigate got close enough to graze the Dreadnought's shields before a broadside railgun hit cracked it in two. The void was filled with silent flashes of light, drifting debris, and trails of glowing plasma. The cruisers, 3 cruisers moving in. The sensor officer warned. The Dravak heavy cruisers were much tougher than the frigates, larger hulls, thicker armor, and heavier shields. They're trying to box us in, Vance said. Then we break the box, Carter replied. Target the lead cruiser's shield emitters, all forward batteries. The Iron Will dove and rolled, a massive ship moving with surprising speed thanks to its powerful thrusters. Railgun fire and beam cannons tore at the cruiser's shields. The Dravak returned fire with plasma cannons, scorching the Dreadnought's armor and shaking the crew hard enough to knock a few officers from their stations. Boarding. Threat. A sudden alarm blared. Enemy boarding pods incoming. The tactical officer shouted. Carter's eyes narrowed. They're going to try to take us from the inside. On the ship's lower decks, the Marines prepared. Massive metal pods slammed into the hull, drilling through to create entry points. The moment the doors opened, Dravak soldiers in black armor stormed out, their blades and energy rifles flashing in the dim corridors. Marines in powered exosuits met them head-on. The narrow halls filled with the roar of gunfire, the flash of plasma bolts, and the crash of armored fists. Holding the line in the hangar bay, Sergeant Kane's squad fought to keep the Dravak from reaching engineering. One alien soldier leapt onto a Marine's armor, stabbing at weak points, but was thrown off and crushed under an exosuit's boot. Kane barked orders. Hold the line. Don't let them near the reactors. Grenades rolled into the enemy ranks, detonating in bursts of white light. The boarding party began to falter. The Marines pressed forward, forcing them back toward their pods. Boarders neutralized. Kane reported to the bridge minutes later. Hull breach teams sealing the entry points. The trap revealed while the Marines fought inside, Carter noticed something strange on the tactical display. The cruisers aren't trying to destroy us, she muttered. They're hurting us. Vance's eyes widened toward the planet killer's firing arc. The realization hit like ice. The Dravak were buying time for their super weapon to get a clean shot. The planet killer's power, Captain, the sensor officer said grimly. The planet killer is charging its primary weapon. A low hum filled the comms, not from the Iron Will, but from the giant Dravak weapon itself. Its central core began to glow, brighter and brighter, until it was like a small sun in the darkness. If that thing fires, we won't survive, Vance said. That the counter-move Carter's mind raced. Helm, full burn toward the planet killer. Stay below its main gun's firing arc. That puts us right into its escort fleet, Vance warned. That's the point, Carter said. They won't expect us to charge the biggest thing in. The fight. The Dreadnought's engines roared to life, pushing the massive warship forward. Smaller Dravak ships scrambled to block its path, but the Iron Will plowed through them with raw firepower, railguns, missiles, and beam weapons, tearing apart anything that got too close. A dangerous gamble as they closed the distance. Carter gave the next order. Prepare the Graviton Lance. The crew froze for a heartbeat. The Graviton Lance was a prototype, an experimental weapon powerful enough to tear a ship's core apart, but unstable. Firing it could overload the Iron Will's own systems. Vance hesitated. Captain, if it fails, it won't. She cut him off. Get it ready. The final push. The planet killer's glow intensified. Its escorts sworn to protect it, but the Iron Will's guns kept them at bay. On the lower decks, engineers rerouted power, pushing the Dreadnought's reactors to the limit. Warning lights flashed red across the control panels. Graviton lance. At 80%, the weapons officer reported. The planet killer's core was almost fully charged. 90%. The enemy's glow became blinding. 100%. Weapon locked. To be continued. Carter's voice was cold steel. Fire! The Graviton lance roared. A beam of warped light tearing across the void toward the massive Dravak weapon. The screen went white. The vast emptiness of space was broken by the glowing pulse of the Iron Will's Graviton lance as it screamed toward the heart of the Dravak planet killer. The bridge held its breath. All eyes were fixed on the screen, waiting for the weapons. Impact. Suddenly, a blinding flash filled the viewport, white, then black. For a moment, it seemed as if the universe itself had vanished. Then, the image returned, but the monstrous ship still floated there. Dark and whole, the Graviton lance had struck, but it hadn't destroyed the beast. Instead, a deep rumble shook. The Iron Will, the monstrous ship's shields flickered, but then grew stronger, and the hum of its main weapon grew louder than ever. The true power of the monster captain, Rhea Carter, clenched her fists. Report! The sensor officer's face was grim. The Graviton lance disrupted its core briefly, but the planet killer's shields recovered fast. It's adapting to our weapons. Commander Vance's voice was sharp. They must have a backup system. That thing is built to survive any single strike. The Dreadnought's hull shuddered again as a new wave of energy beams cut toward them, forcing the shields to their limits. Evasive maneuvers. Bring us to the flank. Carter ordered. The Iron Will turned hard, using its powerful thrusters to dodge the enemy fire. The Dravak cruisers guarding the planet killer moved to intercept, their plasma cannons firing in deadly arcs. The dropship's warning. Meanwhile, in the hangar bay, Lieutenant Holly checked the incoming shuttle feed. Captain, the Ivat dropships report heavy Dravak patrols near the planet's surface. They're moving in faster. The wounded survivors still inside the Dreadnought whispered prayers or stared silently at the walls. Some had tears in their eyes, others clenched fists in anger. Keep them safe, Carter said softly. They trusted us. The plan on the bridge. Carter gathered her senior officers. The Graviton lance is powerful, but it's not enough alone. We need a new plan. Vance nodded. We can't keep trading shots with that monster. It's too big, too strong. Agreed, Carter said. Sensors, scan the planet's surface. Is there anything we can use? The sensor officer's eyes lit up. There's a massive magnetic storm forming over the eastern continent. It could disrupt the enemy's sensors and shields. Good, Carter said. Helm, set course. Let's use the storm as cover. Into the storm, the Iron Will moved. Fast toward the growing magnetic storm. The ship's shields crackled under the increased electromagnetic interference, but the crew held steady. Outside, the stars blurred and shimmered as the ship plunged into the storm's edge. The magnetic fields twisted the sensors, creating flickering images and phantom signals. This is going to be rough, the sensor officer said, but the Dravak ship was affected too. The huge planet killer slowed down, its weapons faltering as the storm's power scrambled its systems. Surprise attack, now! Carter shouted. The Dreadnought surged out of the storm's edge, charging directly at the vulnerable flank of the planet killer. All batteries fire. She ordered. The Iron Will unleashed a furious barrage of missiles, railgun slugs, and plasma beams. The planet killer's shields shuddered and flickered. The Dravak fleet tried to respond, but the storm's interference slowed their targeting systems. Several cruisers were hit and forced to retreat. Boarding pods launch as the battle raged. Alarms screamed on the Iron Will. Boarding pods incoming. Again, the Dravak tried to invade from inside. Marines hurried to defensive positions. Carter clenched her jaw. They want this ship. We can't let them have it. The battle below deck in the dark corridors, the fight was brutal. Marines and Dravak soldiers clashed in close combat. Plasma rifles flashed, metal clanged, and cries echoed through the ship. "Sergeant!" Kane led a squad to block the main passageways. "Hold the line, no step back." In one corridor, a Marine and a Dravak warrior grappled. The Marine used his strength to throw the enemy against the wall, then fired a quick burst. The tide turns back on the bridge. The weapons officer reported, "Shields holding at 70%. Graviton lance ready again." Carter smiled grimly. "Let's finish this." The Dreadnought charged its massive weapon once more. The energy grew, bending space and light. Fire! The beam screamed toward the planet killer's core. This time, the impact was different. The enemy ship shook violently. Enemy reaction: the planet killer's hull cracked, pieces breaking away into space. The Dravak fleet faltered, confusion spreading. Among their ranks, the massive ship's glow dimmed, its weapons powering down. Carter's voice rang out, firm and clear. "Keep firing, don't let them recover." The final push with renewed energy, the Iron Will pressed its attack. Missiles and railguns tore into the crippled planet killer. The Dravak ships tried to cover their giant weapon, but were destroyed. One by one, in the hangar, the evacuees watched anxiously as the war raged outside. Hope grew in their eyes. Aftermath finally. The planet killer exploded in a massive fireball, lighting the darkness of space. Cheers erupted on the Iron Will. Captain Carter allowed herself a rare smile. "We did it, but this is just the beginning." She turned to the bridge crew. "The Dravak will come back. We must be ready." The Iron Will drifted in the dark space beyond the shattered world. Smoke and fire from the battle still lit the skies far below, but above, the stars were calm again, for now. Inside the massive ship, the crew moved with a tired urgency. Many were wounded. The survivors huddled in the cargo bays, still frightened but alive. Captain Rhea Carter stood on the bridge, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Damage report: the engineering officer, Lieutenant Grayson, came to her side. "Captain, we took heavy damage from the boarding parties and plasma strikes. Shields are down to 50%, and some weapon systems are offline." Carter frowned. "How long until full repair?" "Best case 3 days, but we're deep in enemy space. No guarantee we'll get that time." Vance, the first officer, leaned over the tactical display. "The Dravak haven't given up. Scouts are probing our defenses. They know we're weak." Carter nodded. "Then we make them pay for every inch they want." Boarding aftermath below decks, Sergeant Kane's squad worked to secure the ship. The boarding fight had been brutal. The Dravak soldiers were fierce, skilled, and desperate. "Clear the last breach," Kane ordered. "Seal it tight. No one else gets in." The medics treated wounds from both sides. Some Dravak prisoners lay unconscious, captured rather than killed. Kane looked at one and muttered, "You're lucky we don't finish what we started." A new threat suddenly. The sensor officer's voice cut through the calm. "Captain, multiple incoming signals on long range." Carter straightened. "Details: large fleet detected, not Dravak." The bridge crew exchanged surprised glances. "Unknown. Ships closing fast. Unknown intent." An unexpected visitor as the new fleet approached. A single ship broke from the formation. It was sleek and fast with sharp angles. A message came through. "This is Commander Eric of the Talonor Collective. We seek parley." Carter frowned. "Talonor? They are known for being ruthless." Vance added, "But they don't usually attack humans without reason." The parley on the main screen. Eric's ship glowed softly. "We offer an alliance against the Dravak," he said. "Your fight is ours." Carter considered the offer. "Why now? Why help us?" "The Dravak threaten all of us," Eric replied. "Together we have a chance." Carter nodded slowly. We will discuss terms. Preparing for war as talks continued, the Iron Will's crew repaired what they could. Engineers worked around the clock. Every system counts. Carter reminded them. She gathered her officers. We cannot fight this war alone. We need allies, and we must be ready for the next battle. Sabotage. Suddenly, alarms blared. Security. Breach in engineering. Kane ran to the scene. Saboteurs had damaged power conduits and weapon controls. Find them. Carter ordered. The crew searched the ship. Suspicion grew. Could the Dravak have planted spies? Or worse, traitors among the humans? A desperate escape. The Tal'anar fleet stayed close, their ships like wolves circling the Iron Will. The Dravak scouts harassed them with hit-and-run attacks. Carter made a decision. We jumped to the nearest safe system. The engines roared. The Dreadnought leapt through space. A new hope in the new system. All eyes awaited. Other species, wary but willing to join humanity. Carter smiled faintly. We are not alone. To be continued. The war was far from over, but humanity's Dreadnought had survived the fire in the void. And now, stronger than ever, it was ready for what came next. The dark void of space felt colder than ever. The Iron Will drifted near the edge of a strange star system, surrounded by new ally ships. The survivors from the shattered planet rested, but the crew knew this calm was only temporary. Captain Rhea Carter stood on the bridge, her eyes sharp and hard. The Dravak had lost their planet killer, but they were far from defeated. The warning, suddenly, the sensor officer's voice cut through the quiet. Captain. Incoming fleet, Dravak reinforcements, large and fast. The tactical display lit up with dozens of glowing red dots, enemy warships closing in. They're coming back, Carter said grimly. And this time, they want everything. The Choice Commander Vance approached. We can't fight that many ships head-on. Our damage is still serious. Carter looked at the incoming fleet, then at her crew. We don't have a choice. We fight, or we die. Allied Strategy. The Tal'anar commander, Eric, joined the meeting. We will support your defense, he said. But we must use strategy. Not just strength. We trap them, Carter said slowly. Draw them in close, then hit with everything we have. The trap is set. The Iron Will and allied ships moved to a narrow asteroid belt near a small moon. The enemy fleet followed. Eager for battle, Carter's voice was calm but fierce. Hold your fire until my command. The ambush as the Dravak fleet entered the asteroid field. The allied ships exploded into action. Missiles and energy beams erupted, striking from hidden positions. The asteroid shielded the defenders, making it hard for the Dravak to aim. Fierce battle. The battle was brutal. Ships exploded, lighting the dark space with fire. The Iron Will took hits but fired back with power and precision. Captain Carter stayed calm, giving orders that kept the crew focused. Betrayal. Suddenly, a warning flashed. Ally ship firing on us. One officer shouted. A Tal'anar cruiser had turned its weapons on the Iron Will. Betrayal, Carter shouted. Divert power to shields. The cruiser's fire hit the Dreadnought side, causing explosions. Chaos. The bridge erupted in chaos. Why would they do this? Vance asked, shocked. Carter clenched her fists. We don't know. But we can't let it break us. The allied ships split. Some stayed loyal. Others attacked, turning the tide despite betrayal. Carter refused to give up. She ordered all weapons to focus on the traitor ship. Missiles slammed into the cruiser, crippling it. The rest of the loyal fleet regrouped. The final stand. The Dravak reinforcements pressed their attack. The Iron Will's shields were weak, and weapons were overheating. Carter ordered Marines to prepare for boarding defense again. We hold this ship, no matter what. A desperate fight in the narrow corridors. Marines and Dravak soldiers fought with desperation. Blades clashed, rifles fired, and armor slammed against metal walls. The ship shook from outside attacks and inside battles. Last orders on. The bridge. Carter stayed calm but ready. Prepare the last reserve battery. If this is our end, Vance said quietly, we go down fighting. Carter nodded. That's the human way. The blast the iron will unleash a final, powerful blast from its reserve weapons. The energy wave tore through the enemy fleet, destroying many ships. The Dravak fleet faltered and began to retreat. Aftermath, the ship was battered. Many wounded but alive. Carter looked at her crew. We survived. But mercy was denied. She knew the war would continue. To be continued. The Dreadnought would sail on, carrying hope, pain, and strength. Humanity had answered the cry for mercy. And now, it was time to answer with fire.